Today I want to talk about why the ACT should care about the future of the Cooma Bombala rail line. November this year will mark the centenary of the opening of the train line from Cooma to Bombala. It's a sad anniversary, to be honest, because trains stopped running beyond Cooma 35 years ago this month. An enormous amount of work and expense went into creating a major piece of transport infrastructure that was only used for 65 years. 2.5 years after the Cooma to Bombala section of the line closed, passenger services south of Queanbeyan were suspended. 8 months later, it was decided that the bridge over the Numarela River, 20 kilometres north of Cooma, was unsafe, so freight trains stopped running along that route as well. If you've lived in Canberra for a good while like me, you might remember the scenic heritage train trips that the Canberra Region Heritage Rail used to run from Canberra to Royalla. I actually went to a 21st on one of those trains and it was a great time. But even those stopped in 2007. These days there's a stop block on the line at Queanbeyan and that's as far south as you can get. Now the whole line is slowly deteriorating, and it seems such a shame when we know how important it is to find alternative forms of transport to the endless lines of trucks and cars that clog our ever-widening highways. Last year, the New South Wales Government released the results of a $1 million feasibility study on reopening the line for freight and extending it in the north to Canberra Airport and in the south as far as the deepwater harbour of Twofold Bay, down near the Victorian border at Eden. Short answer, it's too expensive. This is due to the almost 20 kilometres of tunnelling required to navigate the steep and wild terrain between the escarpment and the coast. But the Cooma and Monaro Progress Association don't agree with this assessment. They've commissioned their own feasibility study, and that's come up with an alternative route that requires only 3 tunnels, totalling a distance of just 1.5 kilometres, and bringing the projected cost down to $2.9 billion, significantly less than the New South Wales Government's estimate of over $6 billion. With the ongoing and seemingly perpetual discussion about building a high-speed rail link between Sydney and Melbourne, a branch line to an excellent but underutilised harbour could make a difference in the viability of both projects. Meanwhile, there's another very different plan on the drawing board as well. We could transform that scenic and gently undulating rail corridor into a cycling and hiking trail. These rail trails are springing up on disused rail lines all over the world, from New York's High Line on the west side of Manhattan to Paris's Coulée Verte, to the 390-kilometre Katy Trail in Missouri. Here in Australia, there are now more than 100 rail trails, ranging from ones that are less than a kilometre in length, like Ballarat's Bunny Rail Trail, to trails of more than 100 kilometres, like the Great Victorian Rail Trail. Canberra's in a unique position with regard to the Queanbeyan to Bombala line. It basically runs through our backyard, yet it's across the border, so it's hard for us to get a say in which, if any, of these visions that we'll get in the future. As a Greens MLA, it seems to me that the worst option is for nothing to happen. If no one takes responsibility for this abandoned 200-kilometre corridor, we'll get nothing at all. Instead, it'll be overtaken by the weeds that tend to proliferate beside railway tracks. The old wooden sleepers will slowly rot. The rails will rust. Is that what we want? I don't think so. Both the rail trail plan and the plan to reopen the line potentially have good green credentials, as well as clear lifestyle and economic benefits for Canberra and for the whole Monaro region. A rail trail would contribute to ecotourism in our region, and a well cared for and thoughtfully planted route would encourage the regrowth of native vegetation and habitat along either side. A renovated and extended rail line would take trucks off our roads and streamline the movement of goods and waste. At the very least, reopening the line as far as Hume would provide alternative freight transport opportunities for Hume businesses, especially for existing and future recycling facilities. I believe the ACT Government needs to develop a clear position on what we would like to see for the future of the Queanbeyan to Bombala railway corridor. Once we've done that, we can take our vision, government to government, with New South Wales. As Canberrans, what do you think?